comfortable participating and asking any questions that they need to. This is just for our internal organizational purposes. Perfect. So we are live on Facebook. We are recording. We are ready to go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to PAX Palestine Monday series. We are very excited to have you all joining us for this month specifically to talk about the olive harvest season. If you didn't know by now, October marks the beginning of the olive harvest season in Palestine. So we really wanted to make sure that we spent this month learning about the beauty of the olive harvest, but also about some of the difficulties that come with the olive harvest season, given Palestine's situation right now, being under occupation, and having to face Israeli settler colonialism as they try to continue practicing these important traditions. I also wanted to just ground our conversation with everything that's been happening on the ground recently. We know that there's been a lot of extra attacks, right? Attacks happen all the time in Palestine, but the last couple of weeks especially have been hard. A lot of Palestinians are being attacked by not only Israeli state forces, but also Israeli citizens who have been hyper-militarized and I don't even know what the word is, but started joining the Israeli military itself. And so we wanted to just honor that and take some space to honor them and to send our support and love and just uplift everything that is happening on the ground now. And maybe there will be some time for that conversation also in today's Zoom. So we're gonna get started. I wanna just jump in because we have two exciting people with us today. So just so everyone knows the format for today, we are going to start off with a very special guest who is joining us from Palestine at 11 p.m. their time. So we very much appreciate Mariam, who is the executive secretary of the Batir municipality, and is also the person who leads a lot of the folklore of the town, the Hakiyati, I hope I pronounce it right. But we're very grateful for you to start us off with just, we want to celebrate our Palestinian traditions also. So we're gonna start off by hearing some very special and traditional folklore songs that Mariam's gonna lead us in before we get into our conversation for today. So Mariam, thank you for joining us.
Hello, it's very nice to see you all. To sharing these videos with you. You know, my name is Mariam. I'm, as you said, a secretary of Batir municipality, and I'm a storyteller too, heritage stories. And I start telling stories by, you know, what we start off and what off. My father was a farmer and he was digging the land line by line by his donkey. And he was sitting under the sun, you know, digging the land line by line under the sun. But he was putting us under the tree, the olive trees. And he was doing his working daily, digging the land line by line, helping by his donkey, but the sun was hitting his head. But he put his kids under the olive trees, but he still digging the land line by line every day to keep the land green and to let us love the land. But once he say off, and off mean you are angry and you are tired and you are looking to my father, my eyes, to my father's eyes, and he say off. Did my father say off to the land? And he recognized that he will sing off, and he start to say, Al off, 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 off. He was tired, but he started to sing his off. He make his pain out of his body by singing. And then I tried to make off like what he said, off. Al time to now, we have a song called Oath. It's the story of Oath that we have a pain, but we sing it to make it easy for our life. We see a lot of things in this life, as you say, like no home without a person. He is not in Israeli jails. But when I visit my husband there, he bring me, a gift. Everywhere when I go to visit he bring me a gift. Some gifts come from the prisoner who are in Israeli jail. He bring me a lot of things that I will not forget. If you see, are you with me? Hello, hello, hello.
Yeah, we're here. We hear you.
Yeah, and here's some gift of my husband. He was doing it at jail. It's like occupied Palestine that he do it with this kind of paper, a sugar paper. He start to make his art in the jail, but he's still using an art like my father. He was digging the land and he was angry or tired, but he sing. My husband was in Israeli jail, but he was making art by handmade art like what I showed you. And here is the life. Especially this time we have an olive harvest, but some olive harvest is in area C, and area C it's mean that you will be close to the Israeli settlers, and they start to come to our olives and start to hit the kids or the elders, but we're still going there. We're still using to collect our um, olives with singing too. And we sing to the olive. Some olives songs, it start to in Arabic, I will start to sing it. It's يا زيتون الحك عليك يا زيتون الحك عليك. My father start to sing and all the kids and my mother too start to repeat يا زيتون الحك عليك اطلع زيتك من عينيك اطلع زيتك من عينيك يا زيتون الحواري يا زيتون الحواري صبح جدادك ساري صبح جدادك ساري. And these songs make us like a competition who will collect the olives quickly. My father started to sing, and we are repeating after him, and the day will end like check by singing, by collect some olive from the tree under the tree. It's a beautiful time. It's not easy, when the family is out of their houses to go to their land. It's not close to our home, but we have to go. Like my land is close to Gilo settlement, and there are settlers who are coming to try to put his caravan there with his weapon. Um, Sometimes he want to put his caravan close to my olive trees, and my families and my friends going there, and we let him our paper. This land is ours, and we have a tabo. Tabo, it's mean Ottoman paper that prove that this land is for my father and my grandfather, and we show him this, and we call the police. We fighting him daily. He tried to put his tent or his caravan anywhere to say it's my land, but we have to go to our lands to take care of the trees. This land especially is not close to my home, but it's in the mountain between Batir and Jerusalem. They think to have a big Jerusalem. Batir is the middle, close to Jerusalem, and between Bitar, Eilit settlement, and Gilo settlement, and Batir in the middle. And they think to have a wall there, but in fact, Alhamdulillah, we stopped them to put the wall. It's become a victory in Batir. I would like to share you some songs that we start to sing it. It's Jafra with the kids under the trees. It's say جفرة وهي الرابع طير الحب الشادي غني للسما الزرقاء فلسطين بلادي ويقول القدس حرة بتحرم على الأعادي حيفا ويافا وعكا والضفة الغربية جفرة وهي الرابع فلسطين بتنادي ويقول يا أهل النخوة مدوا للأيادي والله الوطن غالي بعيوني وفؤادي أحميه بروحي ودمي والبسمة الهانية جفرة وهي الرابع طير الحب الشادي غني للسما الزرقاء فلسطين بلادي الأوف أوف 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 الأفاعي سمت العالم بسمها ونفسي إن اشتاكت لغير فلسطين لسمها التحياتي إليكم كل واحد باسمها عدد ما تنبت الأرض العشاب يا باي الأرض إلنا والتراب ترابنا الأرض إلنا والتراب ترابنا and off we will still singing and working with our land, especially the olive harvest these days.
That was beautiful, Mariam. Thank you so much. I feel like I got transported and I could visualize myself there with you guys. Thank you so much for all of your work too, and for taking care of the land and fighting to keep the land. And I know we are here, but we're always thinking about what we can do to help everyone on the ground in Palestine. And we just appreciate you a lot for coming and sharing this with us too, and grounding us in what's happening over there.
I'm appreciate that I share these things with you. It's our heritage. In this time we have a Heritage Day, Palestinian Heritage Days. It's 7th of October, but all October we are celebration. We still telling stories, heritage stories, song stories, our proverb, all that. I will show you some of our tools that we say, here is our tools. It's every home. We have a lot of things. Here is my grandfather that I will still keep his things, the materials that my grandmother was do it, by their handmade art. Our hound, I don't know if you know Il Hound. We say we have a heritage, heritage, Palestinian heritage. The Shafawi, we say it from mouth, and what we touched and what we used, like the lamb, the old lamb here. And here the coffee, many times they were using the coffee and everything that we can use it, we call العكال. It was for my grandfather. I still keep it here in my home. I feel proud to have these things. My dress that my mother handmade, and I start to do what she work, but I'm busy, but I will keep all these from my grandfather till now with our heritage things, our heritage songs, our heritage stories that let the others know that it's Palestine, it's for Palestinian. We speak in Arabic and we still using our food, our clothes, our hand made art. And we are so happy with that because Palestine is in our heart, I know. And especially the person who are leave Palestine, they missed Palestine. I wish you will back. And we will sing together under the olive trees, and I will start to sing and you will repeat. يا زيتون الحواري جدد صبح جدادك ساري يا زيتون الحك عليك اطلع زيتك بين عينيك. I feel so happy to be with you.
We're very happy to have you. Inshallah, one day we'll all be with you in Palestine under the olive trees, and you inspire us to continue to hold on to our heritage and keep fighting for Palestine. So thank you so much for spending your time with us and for everything you shared with us. If everyone can just help me thank Mariam, either just unmuting or just with a reaction in the chat, and then we'll transition to our next speaker. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mariam.
Thank you.
Welcome anytime. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome anytime. Take care. I wish you a good. It's 4 o'clock to you, but a good day.
Thank you. Have a great night. Thank you so much, Mariam. So
Take
now,
care.
now that we are grounded kind of very physically in Palestine, it's my pleasure to transition us to our next speaker, who's going to help us understand the olive harvest in through a settler colonial analysis and really take us step by step of how that has impacted olive harvest tradition in Palestine. So I am very honored and happy to introduce Dr. Leila Sharif, who is a creative writer, researcher, and educator at the School of Social Transformation at Arizona State University. Her forthcoming book, Olive Skins, is about how the olive, which has been cultivated in Palestine for 7,000 years, connects Palestinians worldwide to the land. She has published essays as well as poetry in academic and public journals. This year, Sharif published a book called Departures with other members of the Critical Refugee Studies Collective, for which she is a founding member. Sharif is also a founding co-leader for the Palestinian Feminist Collective, and Leila is the first Palestinian to earn a PhD in ethnic studies, which she holds alongside a PhD in sociology from UC San Diego. It's a very impressive bio that just speaks for itself, and it's very great to connect with you on this platform, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, Abir. Thank you for inviting me and for having me, and also for bringing مريم. يعطيها العافية مريم. صعب الواحد يعني مستحيل ما يتأثر من الموسيقى هذه يسمعها، فسلم إيديكي وعلى صوتك والله يسعدك. Thank you all for being here, and I'm a little discombobulated today, so I'm gonna do my best to kind of pivot between some of these different threads. So here we go. Okay, so I was asked to talk about the impact of Israeli settler colonialism on our olive harvesting practices. And in order to do that, I thought I would share some of my research. But in order to be able to do that, I want to begin by acknowledging the 23 Native nations that have inhabited this land for centuries here in Tempe, Arizona, where I am, that have allowed us to create work for Palestine. And I want to talk a little bit about the olive. So olive cultivation began in the fertile mountainous area of Jalil al-Arabi, or the Galilee, in Palestine thousands of years ago. Palestinian land workers often remark at how when Palestinians take care of the land takes care of the Palestinian people. Following the first autumn rainfall, Palestinians convened to participate in the labor-intensive process of harvesting, which is happening now, which requires a full month of diligent work. Experienced elders, just as Mariam pointed out, share the wisdom of cultivation. Children climb trees, competing for the highest reach. Women collect ripe olives in their nets, makeshift nets made of their thobe, just like the one that Mariam is wearing. Uncles, aunts, cousins, grandparents, neighbors collect olives in buckets laid out over long strips of tarp or sheets. And more than half of the Palestinian population in the homeland partakes in this olive harvest, spending weeks in fields and groves. It's considered very valued work, so children take off of school in order to help in this effort. After the laborious harvest is completed, land workers send their fresh olives to olive presses in order to extract oil. This has to be done in order to retain the exceptional quality. Now, since the establishment of the State of Israel, many of these ancestral practices have been disrupted. But for Palestinians, the olive is still at the heart of every aspect of life, material and cultural and spiritual. The tree's ability to endure famine and to derail thirst and fruit every other year, in spite of ongoing damage, environmental degradation, and appropriation, has caused it to become eulogized in poetry and with its image crafted over silver pendants, recalling a past when Palestinians were not refugees, as most of us are, and live and die outside of our homeland, or an oppressed minority under colonial rule, but as free people who lived off of the fruits of our land. The impact of Israeli settler colonialism on Palestine is so much to discuss, but it is really very much about theft. It's not just about theft of the land, it's also about the damage and the violence and planting things to bury Palestinian olive groves and homes. It's also about the theft of water. For Palestinians, it continues to be a marker of our identity and a huge source of celebration. But today I'm going to share two stories from my research in Palestine, where it's really just about listening and learning stories about from my Palestinian elders. So I want to start with the story of what is called the Sufi tree. The oldest olive tree in the world is located in the Palestinian village of El-Walajeh. Perched on top of a hill, visitors often remark at the village's exquisite splendor, especially as it overlooks the southern outskirts of the holy city of Al-Quds, or Jerusalem as it's known. The soil is crimson, the stones that surround it are white, and verdant green terraces form lush layers along a hill where Palestinians long planted and harvested olive trees, along with pomegranate, carob, almond trees, and also sowed vegetables and fruits that they would sell at the local markets. The olive tree is over 5,000 years old. I have an image of it here. It's over 5,000 years old, and it kind of created, and it's massive. So it's sort of like a natural canopy of shade for recreation and prayer beneath its thick trunk and branches. The roots are buried so deep within the ground that if you looked at the tree from a distance, you think it was made of a family of smaller trees that were bursting midway out of the soil. Villagers and guests alike come to gather, pray, share meals, meditate, and harvest beneath its shade. Many stories surround the family of roots that together make up this Sufi tree. School children often hear of the holy prophets who took rest beneath its shade. It is believed that the tree is named for Ahmad al-Badawi, a 13th century Sufi theologian from Morocco who traversed through the lush ancient hills of the village and encountered this tree. Observing the tree and the limestone terraces, crimson soil, and verdant terraces, one cannot help but just be amazed by its beauty. Absolutely incredible and life-changing to see, especially as a Palestinian who lives in the diaspora. But in the words of Shireen al-Araj, a prominent activist in Al-Walaja, amid this beauty, there is madness. The year that we know as Nekbe, 1948, was the year when, or that October 21st, so almost to the day, in about 4 days, Al-Walaj in 1948, Al-Walaj was violently raided by armed Zionist militias. 75% of the village, its sprawling groves and orchards, as well as its 30 water springs, were raided and stolen during a campaign against the Palestinian villages that surround Jerusalem, where Maryam actually is from. The armed settlers charged a week-long campaign of violence and terror against Palestinians, and ultimately, they were encircled, and soon Al-Walaj saw her 18,000 dunams reduced to 4,000 dunams. Dunam is a Palestinian unit of measurement, and it's about a quarter of an acre. While most villagers fled the violence to refugee camps developed by the UN, some residents settled in makeshift dwellings in the village remains, literally living in caves, waiting to get back to their lands. But 2 years later, they witnessed their lands transformed into a settler colony of Amanidav. Those that were living in the conquered part of the original village were not informed of Israel's new annexation, state boundaries, and were actually made refugees while they were living inside of their very house. In 1967, so about 20 years later, when there was another war, Israel occupied the remaining Palestinian territories. Nearly half of the lands that remained in Al-Walaj were stolen, again, in contravention of international law, a colonial project that continues, as we hear from Maryam, but as we also have seen in Sheikh Jarrah and Silwan and all these other cities that have been on the news lately. A few years later, Israel stole more land to build Gilo and Har Gilo settlements, as well as the infamous bypass road to connect Jewish Israeli settlers to Greater Jerusalem. In contrast, Al-Walaj villagers lived in makeshift dwellings among ruins to retain proximity to their beloved olive trees. And every fall, and they still do, they continue to the harvest as had been done for thousands of years and continue to take pride in their attachment to the land. Perhaps by some miracle, the beloved Al-Badawi tree was still on the Palestinian side of a village which was now in fragments. But in 2002, Israel decided that it needed more of our land. That year, it began the construction of a massive concrete structure, now 20 years old, separating Palestinians from more of their lands, as well as lands conquered in 1948 in today's Israel. Funded by US taxpayer monies, Israel's wall is 9 meters tall and prevents Palestinians access to their olive groves. It is embedded with state-of-the-art surveillance technologies, and tens and thousands of olive trees in particular were targeted and decimated and bulldozed to make way for the construction construction of this wall. The massive slab of concrete penetrates the ancient olive groves, is embedded with various kinds of surveillance technology, dystopic watchtowers, electric fences, deep trenches, surveillance cameras, body sensors, and 24/7 long military patrol. Today, Al-Walaja's population has been reduced down to 10% of what it originally was before 1948. Almost all of its remaining inhabitants are refugees living on the Palestinian side of a fragment of their village. They suffer daily from brutal military occupation that denies them the right to return to their homes just a yard away, or even the right to visit. Soon, the Israeli plans for this wall, which is still being constructed, we often talk about like it's done, but it's still going. That's why when Mariam says that they have enormous successes in Betir, we have to celebrate every victory against this wall. But in the case of this tree, the wall will soon be encircled, according to Israeli plans, 360 degrees, and the remaining hills will be transformed into a national park for the enjoyment of Israeli settlers from nearby settlements. Soon, the oldest olive tree in the world, the product of the labor of our ancestors and the ongoing love that we have for our land, will be completely encircled and trapped within a 9-foot concrete block. The ancient olive tree is in many ways our story as Palestinians. It's the story of land stolen and continuously being stolen, of borders placed to separate us from our lands and from each other, to alienate us from our traditions and our relationship to the land, and in fact, to make us disappear. It also reminds us that we need to support our ancestral traditions and celebrate them, because there's so much about our survival, and they will be part of our thriving. By some miracle, just like this tree, we are still here. Perhaps it is like this olive tree in the sense that we don't need much and we can endure the most horrible of circumstances, and our people continue to, but it is also full of power. As though in silent protest, the Sufi tree continues to explode out of the earth. And every fall, right now, Palestinians sneak in, these are Israeli legal terms, so I use them cynically, in order to harvest the tree and to cultivate the land beneath her. That's the first story I want to share. And I urge you all to go visit this tree if you can. This is the wall that is being erected in Al-Walaja. And you can see here on the right side, they blew up a mountain adjacent to Al-Walaja in order to make way for this, tree. And on the left, you can also see that there are bulldozers that are uprooting trees using very high-tech machinery, but also I'll explain the violent attacks against land workers as well. Okay, so this is a bit shorter, this story. How are we doing on time? I'm just gonna take a quick look in the chat to see if, okay, good, great. All right, thank you. Okay, so I wanted to end, I guess, with this image of Mahmoud Ishtayeh, who was on the flyer for this event. And this image was taken in 2005. It's very old, but it's so important to all of us. I've seen people etch this image into their skin as a tattoo. I've seen it recreated. And here I've seen a poem by Muhammad al-Kurd, who you all know has been at the forefront of leading so much of these ongoing theft in Jerusalem area, who wrote a poem for her. So she has circulated across generations, across times, across geographies. And I want to kind of tell you a little bit about her because it's important to know her story. I closed with this image of Mahmoud Ishtayeh, who is a 75-year-old Palestinian fallaha or land worker who embraces an olive tree sawed down in her olive grove in the village of Salim near the city of Nablus. On Sunday, November 27, 2005, Jewish Israeli settlers from the settlement of Shomron severed 200 olive trees planted by Mahfouda and her family. The image of Mahfouda circulated in various blogs and newspapers in the Arab world and became iconic of Palestinian attachment to the olive tree and by extension, the land of Palestine, although it received very little media attention in the United States. Surprise, surprise. In this image, Mahfouda is shown in a state of crisis. She embraces the skinny trunk that almost camouflages the leafy branches that once sprouted from it. Her eyes are sealed in grief as she embraces the trunk with an Israeli soldier seemingly unperturbed, waiting for her to let go of the tree and be removed permanently from her olive grove. Her mouth is parted as though in protest, and she's speaking to sort of the remains of the trees that she clutches onto. All around her are remains of Palestinian life, beautiful, silvery green, uprooted Palestinian life. In a report following the image's circulation, Mahfoud explained, quote, "We were working the land. We plowed the land, harvested, and cleared it here and there near the bypass road over there. We came this way to work the land and found the olive trees grounded like martyrs. We had no mind in us left. We went insane. And I confronted the Israeli soldier and I said to him, 'What did the olive tree do to you to be uprooted like this? What did the olive tree do to you?' In the image, Israel's presence is obviously ominous and disturbing, watching Mahfoudeh clutching her amputated branches, illustrating what I think are two important things about Palestine and our relationship to it. One is the constant danger of being Palestinian and wanting to maintain your ancestral traditions, especially for land workers, which are the backbone of in our entire people. And two is the love attributed to the olive tree, and that later Mahfoudeh kind of explains. She says, quote, "When I service the olive trees, plow the land or harvest, I see their value like my child, or even more than that, a child that we raised. That day I cried and I embraced the olive tree like a woman who sees her son martyred and rests on him in an embrace. I saw my tree like a fallen martyr because of its value to me. I hugged that tree out of endless love." Against the backdrop of a pending decimation, the image of Mahfoudeh conjures the settler colonial context of a violent military occupation and the imminent vanishing of the landscape of Palestine through the removal of these olive trees. But it also reveals that our connection to the olive tree is radically about love, nurture, and care, and a desire for a Palestinian future, for the land, for the people who come before us who've nurtured it, and the living and non-living beings that create, sustain, and remember it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nida. That was beautiful. That was a beautiful way to end. I'm like, I need a minute to process all of that. But I wanna just thank you on behalf of everyone at PAC. I want to encourage people to ask questions. If you have any questions or comments, now is the time to put them in the chat. There is one comment from Facebook because I'm kind of keeping an eye on both. I'm gonna put it in the chat for everyone to see. There's a couple of questions in it. So what is the natural secret of olive production? Because everything is created for some purpose in the universe. So olives also have multiple purposes. And a question of why are Israeli settlers living near to Masjid al-Aqsa? They're trying to create disturbances and difficulties for Palestinians. We have to talk about every aspect of that. So I don't know if there's any parts of that you want to touch on before we get to other questions.
Absolutely. So quickly, Lana, let me answer your question. It's in Al-Walaja village, which is between Jerusalem, Al-Quds, and Beit Lahem. It's right near the Hargilo settlement. It's one of the more violent settlements or settlers, if you will. So the question about why are Israeli settlers living near Masjid al-Aqsa? Why are they trying to create this disturbance? Absolutely. This is sort of, we often talk about conditions of unlivability. That's how people will often phrase it. But this is part of that sort of system of of settler colonialism that really wants to make indigenous life unlivable, right? So what that means is there are these areas that I mentioned, they're constantly expanding through military force. These are people's houses. These are houses that people have inherited from their ancestors that are either being bulldozed down or they're being, cleared. I have one example of when I was doing my research 10 years ago. There was a young kid that I met. He was really young. He was in his early 20s. He had just gotten married. His name was Sammy, and he was living in East Jerusalem. And Israel just put a note on his door saying that you need to bulldoze your own house because it's in the way of our bypass road. And if you don't, you're going to be fined. And if you're, and you'll also be in prison. So this kid on his honeymoon, basically the week after he got married, had to bulldoze his home. 18 people were living in that home. It was a multi-generational home. And they were basically homeless. I interviewed them in what used to be rubble that used to be their kitchen. And one of the girls was holding a pink tile to remind me of her bathroom that, that was the tile that was once there in the bathroom that was once standing in her home. What was most amazing about that experience is when I left, I noticed, and it was fall, so it was raining, and there was an old man. He was the grandfather who his father had built that house. And he was standing next to an olive tree and he was saying, what did he say? It was Wahyat Allah, for God, as my witness. They'll take my life before they take this tree. He was literally embracing a tree that was 200 years old that had been planted by his father. And he was not so concerned, or he was less concerned about the home that had just been demolished, but it was the tree, because it was a marker of everything that's Palestinian on that landscape, and so these kinds of encroachments are ongoing. They're extremely violent, and they happen in a lot of ways. Sometimes they happen in ways, especially for those of us living in the US, that seem extremely good. Plant a tree in Israel, but they never tell you that when you do these things, that you're planting a pine tree that buries a village, 500 villages that are being buried beneath these national forests. On the surface, it looks like a fantastic thing. Who doesn't want to support more trees? Right? But there's a hidden subtext that says that participation is in settler colonialism, right? And it's a good thing, right? And it's a modern and wonderful thing. This kind of narrative of Israel being a marker of progress, modernity, and democracy has been used in order to promote the very kinds of things that I'm talking about.
Yeah, thank you for that answer. As you were saying that, I was starting to think, and I don't know if this is something that has been explored yet at all, but we know that Israel appropriates a lot of Palestinian life and traditions and symbols. And so I've been wondering if that at all has started to happen, of appropriation of the appreciation of the olive tree, or just taking care of the olive tree at all.
Yeah, there's been, so one of the things that I've been really interested in my research is why, at the same moment that Palestine is vanishing in this really violent way through settler colonialism and violent military occupation, why is it that Palestine's become so celebrated in gastronomy, right? Especially in the realm of food culture. And some major brands import for Palestine. Lush Cosmetics, which is a vegan, vegetarian brand based out of Britain. They have over 500 stores around the world. They import their olive oil from Palestine, but on the label, you'd never know it was from Palestine because it's marketed as an Israeli product. So there are all these layers of how people continue to try within fair trade and other spaces to maintain these ancestral practices in a way that gains visibility. But at the same time, that doesn't take away the settler colonialism piece, right? So you can make, for example, more money as a farmer who now has a market that you can send to Lush Cosmetics and Dr. Bronner and other companies that import Palestinian olive oil. But what does that mean for the question of settler colonialism? Neoliberalism and these ideas of economic growth have never been our decolonial story, right? So it's complicated, but there are still initiatives that at least allows farmers to have their products see a market, which is so barred, it's so contained and restricted by the state of Israel that is to some degree been a way of trying to maintain a livelihood using our practices. So yeah, it's always both, right? I mean, there's no pure form, but in this case, it's complex in the sense that Palestinians market their product as from Palestine. Sometimes it never sees visibility as Palestinian, but it allows them to survive, or at least to stay on their lands, right? So yeah, I could speak more to that, but.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of we just started in New Jersey. We have a couple of folks working on. I'm looking at Brian, who's also part of this, a campaign called No Appetite for Apartheid, and we've been thinking about and looking into different products that we can encourage local store owners not to use or not to get. And so I think maybe we're going to start adding some olives and olive oil research into that as well. I want to ask a question just about, we've been talking a lot, whether your work or Mariam's work, about intergenerational work and the importance of passing down stories, passing down family histories of olives and olive trees and land. And sometimes that's difficult. We're located and we're a community center that serves a very heavily concentrated Palestinian community, but sometimes just getting everyone to talk to each other, talk to elders, talk to youth, and kind of maintaining that importance gets difficult. So I wonder if you have any, thoughts or advice about how to continue maintaining this intergenerational work, whether from your experience or just experiences of others.
I would love to hear Mariam's thoughts, especially because she's there and she's doing the good work that she's doing. What I would say as a Palestinian born and raised outside of the homeland, obviously our relationship to the land is going to be different just because of our circumstances. But one thing that I think is important is that a lot of times when we talk about Palestine, we talk about the violence, we talk about and obviously you can't get away from that. But we also need to remember our traditions. We need to remember who we are. We need to develop our love for our land, right? That sometimes exceeds our own parents' and grandparents' relationship to it. Sometimes it's a relationship that begins in the imagination because of our circumstances. So I think that, one thing that I love about the olive harvest is that it was very much an educational tool. And maybe Mariam can speak to this. This is where you learn about history, you learn about your traditions, who you are as a person, who are the people that came before you that you must continue to honor. And those kinds of lessons are very much, we can have a digital harvest, where we can kind of continue in that tradition of celebration and honoring the people and the land. The other thing is that it's very interesting because sometimes tradition will just happen to you. And I'll explain what I mean. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California, and not in Palestine. My family is from Al Khalil. My mother was born in Jenin. My father was born in Gaza. My relationship to Palestine came through my parents until I was able to go and to learn and to collect stories. But one thing that my father did in Los Angeles, and you can imagine how weird this is, and maybe some people can know about this experience, but anywhere he saw an olive tree, it could be behind a random McDonald's or behind a gas station. We had to go and get a bucket and get a net and get the sillam, get the ladder. We're going to go pick it because he wanted us to learn that this is like actually meaningful work, right? This is an education. But when you're 6 and you have all these Americans staring at you with their eyes like this, and they're like, شو مالها الزلمة طالع بالسلم قاعد بينتف بهالشجرة ورا هالمcDonald's يعني انجن or something, and you're like, oh my God, why is my dad doing this? But now you realize that it's part of who we are. Our identity is not outside of us. It's something that we carry with us from what our parents have taught us, and what we also can go and connect with ourselves. So be proud of that. Be proud of how strong our people are. We were not really meant to survive this, but we are here and we're strong, and our sort of power comes in our connection, especially because our connection has to be away from the land at this time. So I guess that's one way that I would answer that.
I have a very similar stories of my father doing the same thing. So thank you for reminding me of that as that kind of cultural practice. I never thought of it in that way, but now it like clicks in my head. I see a question and a comment from Brian, but Mariam, did you want to answer? Like I asked the question, how do we keep generations talking to each other so that we don't forget these stories? And any advice that you have of how we can keep our youth invested and caring about this stuff?
Yeah, of course. I told you about the 7th of October is Heritage Day of Palestine. We celebrate and we start to visit all the schools. We make these things with schools. Start with our in my area we have Batir Public Library, and kids are coming to my to the library, and we make a corner for Palestine. What mean the old things that our grandfather and grandmother will use it. We start to collect our songs, our proverb, our from the elder, because they are our treasure. The elder, if they are go, who will from where we will bring our stories, and we have to document, to collect and to document these things, the song and stories and from the elders, to keep it with a book or videos, or helping by the student. We make groups together to make a research, helping the teachers in the area, especially in Batir. And now we start to go to Bethlehem and Hebron and Ramallah. I feel so happy that especially Wizard al-Thaqafa, we said Ministry of Culture in Palestine, start to support this, to make these days to celebrate. In this week, we make 5 celebration in kindergarten. In Bethlehem, it was in Al-Auda schools, and I start to tell Al-Hattab stories. And when I start to tell story, I think the student will not interest with the story. But when I start, it was very nice. Very nice. They are atshanin, what we say. They thirsty for listening, and they start to sing oh, and they say oh, and it was beautiful with some people from culture ministry. It was very, very nice. I think it's very important to keep working with schools, with universities, to encourage them to keep it. It's very important. The story, the real story, because we have the Israeli stories. It's crazy. Some of our youth are going to work in occupied Palestine, and they think money is important more than what is Palestine. And in Palestine we have to be careful of these things. I would like to add something. What you start to say about the settlement around area. Batir is the Palestinian village, but the settlement close to Bitar. They start to steal our name. Batir, Bitar. Gilo, Har Gilo, close to Beit Jala. Gala, Gilo. And give out Jab'a, the Palestinian village Jab'a. Jab'a, give out. You know, they start to steal our names by their settlement. And then the settlement will be surrounded our area. They want to make our village like nothing, but it's crazy things. We have to share our heritage, our site, to encourage the tourists to come to our village to make it twinny with other cities. Like in Batir, we make it twinny with Brühl in Germany, and France, and Saint-Prieuc, and some twinny. It's encourage to know the place. I feel afraid a little bit about that we will be in small villages around settlement, you know, like a point. It's crazy. And their dream to make a big Jerusalem. This means Batir and Walaja close together. And we have another Nahalin, Hussan, Wadi Fukin, Al Jab'a, and they start to surround us. And it's crazy, not easy. Inshallah, everything will be okay.
Inshallah, you all will keep resisting and fighting, but I know it's hard, and I know it's a lot. So we appreciate all the work you do. And if there's anything at any time that you need from us or that we can do to help, you have our information. Please always send us, and we can send it out to everyone we know too, because we wish we could do more, but any small thing makes a huge difference sometimes. Thank you, Mariam. I do want to, and thank you for the advice with the kid. We teach kids in the summer, and you're right. Like usually, it's teaching the kids just gives you like a rejuvenated energy because they're so willing to learn and want to hear it. So it's just about passing down the right stories to them. So maybe I'll be in touch for some stories for next summer. I want to be conscious. Inshallah, I want to be conscious of everyone's time. So I think we'll wrap up with one more really important question that I'm seeing in the chat. So I want to, that Mo put in the chat for us, I'm going to read out loud. Buying Palestinian products are made a lot more ambiguous when so many Palestinians are restricted to marketing their products solely with the Made in Israel badge. I feel like the hardline BDS approach can hurt those poor folks twice, wrong branding and boycotted. How can I do my homework to know where Israeli branded products are sourced? So Brian, and it's very okay for volunteering me. We are working, there's a little coalition in Jersey, so I encourage you to join us. But Lila, would you like to answer on that at all?
Yeah, so the question is, how do we make sense of BDS given that, you know, oftentimes so many Palestinian products are marketed as Israeli? And I do think that Brian said it best. You know, we have to do studied, you know, boycotts. We don't boycott Palestinian individuals. We boycott companies that benefit off of occupation, right? So there's a very clear kind of companies, institutions, et cetera. Now, you're absolutely right. A lot of times, you know, Lush Cosmetics is an excellent example. They do amazing work. They're majorly, like mostly Palestinian women that run that cooperative, but you would never know by looking at that branding. So, you know, as Brian said, it does require that we do due diligence in learning where our sort of our community is, right, and how we can best support them, because BDS is important. It is really important to have this voice, this sort of instrument for saying that we do not support, as consumers, we do not support, you know, U.S. Support of the state of Israel. So I don't have much to add there.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, I would encourage you to join us. We want to make sure that we're getting the correct and very researched information also. So if there's anyone that has any resources or can help us kind of compile this, we're starting locally, but hopefully we can expand. Please let us know. Thank you all for such a great discussion and conversation. We are posting some more educational materials about olive harvest on our social media. Thank you, Lana, for reminding me, and we're in the process. We have some board members and some ammus who are in Palestine right now, so we're in the process of trying to get some more videos of the actual olive harvest process too, so you all can see it. I want to thank Mila very much for joining us and for taking time. It's so great to actually connect with you. I know we're both part of PFC and stuff, but I haven't gotten to connect. And Mariam, thank you so much for joining us. I know it's midnight at your time, but for joining us and for sharing everything. I'm wondering if you could maybe close us out with a song just to kind of end us, because I love listening to you so much. I want to hear one more if that's possible. We can end with that.
No?
Yes, if you don't, so we can close with one if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course. I was okay. I was saying the last songs it's about oh and oh 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 الأفاعي سمت العالم بسمها ونفسي إن اشتاكت لغير فلسطين لسمها التحياتي إليكم كل واحد بسمها عدد ما تنبت الأرض العشاب يابا الأرض إلنا والتراب ترابنا الأرض إلنا والتراب ترابنا الأرض إلنا والتراب ترابنا الأوف أوف 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 say off
Off.
oh I feel so happy to share this meeting. It's very nice. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Mariam. We appreciate you more. Thank you all for such an amazing discussion. Please stay in contact with us. Please sign up for all of our emails and updates, and we will see you all for our next Palestine Monday series, inshallah. Bye, everyone. Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Bye. This was awesome. Thank you.
Coming.
Salam salam.
Salam. Sabah khair. Bye, everybody. Take care.
Bye, Lila. Thank you so much.